The broadcast is live with Paulo Costa, Agent of Stuff, Dungeon Master Mouse, Scott Connor, and JaredOsborne.com.
Yeah, I had a really elaborate title for this show, and I was like, "That's too long." Yeah, I was like, too ambitious.
Did you get the numbers straightened out?
Yeah. It was just a matter of getting somewhere I could do it. You always have a knack for messaging me when I'm driving, and I'm like, well. and if you pop it open, just to see what it says, your head goes down in the messages, and it's like it's seen,
Yeah.
What do I do? I'm driving. Why'd you look at it? It's a no-win.
Just don't. You think your curiosity makes you look at it? You can't help it.
Well, a little more of it's like I got to make sure it's not work related.
Okay. There we go.
You can be Danger Mouse next week.
Danger Mouse.
And then Penfold the week after.
I'll be Danger Mouse, but you got to be Penfold.
I'm Baroni.
And Jared can be Banana Man.
I'm Baroni.
And that can be Jimbo.
I was going to go Count Duckula, but maybe Greenback? Jimbo? I don't know.
Jimbo was the flying talking plane who was like Thomas the Tank Engine.
Nice.
Princess Consuela Banana Hammock.
That's the after midnight show, Jared. So for those that Eastern Standard Time. Nice.
British animation is the type of stuff that only serious collectors get into.
You'd be surprised.
I love animation animation from everywhere in the world except 80s Korea because of the bad stuff on TV. There's no angles. I like angular. I like angles on my figures and stuff, and anything that's like, I don't know, 1975 to like 1981 Hanna-Barbera stuff and Ruby Spears, just bad animation,
Oh yeah, what was the name of that thing? Turbo Teen.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't thinking of
He transformed into a car. His hands became wheels.
And the GoBots.
Hey, you haven't lived till you've seen the robotic Three Stooges.
There you go.
Oh, I don't remember those.
You're fortunate.
But my favorite TV animation has to be Johnny Quest and Space Ghost. That's how you do it. Innovative. Simple.
He's talking about.
Yeah.
There was this French series called, in English it was called Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea. And it was very good. It had some humorous interludes that didn't really make sense. With some pirates, but the rest of the show was very good, and they were like it's like the Earth was hollow, and they had to go to the center of the Earth and in a sort of spaceship, and they ran across different civilizations.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, I have some. I can't watch most animated stuff. I find the timing of it just I don't like. If it's not like high end, like Bugs Bunny or even Disney, even though I don't like Disney, I can't watch it. Like I tried watching Invincible, the latest one from Bama. I made it 10 minutes through it before I went, oh my God, this animation is terrible. I can't watch. But for some reason, it doesn't bother. I don't know what it is that it bothers me when it doesn't seem to bother other people.
High end Bugs Bunny?
Yeah. Like high-end Warner Brothers stuff from the 40s and 50s animation.
Let me answer that. He believes there's high-end in the Barbera. What a maroon. Get a load of the character.
Hey, that Warner Brothers stuff was top shelf.
Yeah.
Paolo, if I had my way, I'd make it mandatory for you to have your whiskey on every show. That was all.
Well, lately I've been having it.
With a whiskey rum rye riddle, with a risky rum rill rye, toora lura lura lura, I've thrown up on my shirt.
White Russian in a mason jar.
An amazing jar.
Yeah, you can pretend it's yogurt.
Oh, okay, Mr. Lebowski.
I'll have you know that I was drinking these where they were called Caucasians in '93, sir.
Isn't that when the Big Lebowski? When did the Big Lebowski come out?
98-ish, 97-ish.
Was that late? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
He
one of the
called
reasons
them
I liked it, because it had him drinking that.
He's like, he's got my drink. I think they called it a Caucasian once in that movie.
Mm-hmm. What was wild is that for the people, I'm a huge Lebowski fan, but it took 7 years. When I went to the theater to saw it, all the trailers made it look like it was going to be a hardcore detective, movie. I mean, you can go back and watch the trailer.
I've never seen the trailer.
Yeah. So I go to the theater thinking, I'm like, I love mysteries and private detectives and all this stuff. So imagine my surprise when I'm watching this, like, what the hell is going on? So I have a discussion with some of my friends around 2005, and they've been showing it on TV. And of course, they've edited the language and stuff, right, for TV. And I'm told, they were like, you have to give it another chance. It's on TV tonight. So I go home and I watch it, and they dubbed one of the lines about, this is what happens when you meet a, you do a stranger in the butt, but it's different. And they made it to where this is what happens when you meet a stranger in the Alps. And for some reason, the whole movie in that moment. That's the TV version. So I ended up buying the movie, rewatching it, like, what was wrong with me? This is a genius movie. And I made it to Lebowski Fest in 2010. Wow. And I was in the background on Nightline because they showed up and they were interviewing people in the parking lot. And I'm in the background dressed like a Pizza Hut manager, because I picked an obscure character to dress up as. I've got a, black tie, red shirt. I'm sitting there against the rail on Nightline on ABC, drinking a Caucasian, just watching all this stuff. What people don't know is, if you had backed the camera up, one guy had dressed up as a Johnson. He had a nude suit with a big, long, stuffed penis, and he was just standing there staring at him while they were getting interviewed.
Yeah, I think I went into that one cold and enjoyed it thoroughly. So I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's a favorite. I'll watch it again sometime.
Well, I figured out, when you start drinking, you're supposed to have your facilities lower. Well, I take 2 or 3 drinks, and I'm like, you know what, Tim? You can turn them up. You can hear them now. I increased the volume. Oh, my gosh.
This is going to be a good show.
Definitely. we have visitors. Should we behave?
Nah.
No, why? I heard you guys didn't behave last week. I don't know what happened.
That was Daisy's fault, of course.
We can blame it on Daisy.
Speaking of which,
definitely not my fault.
I got her a copy of Monsters, so my LCS owner was happy because he accidentally ordered 4 extra copies of Monsters.
Do you have yours handy there?
Yeah, mine. Where did I put it? Up here.
That was a good segue. Have you guys got your Monsters and be able to read it yet?
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was funny. I was just talking to my friend Bunch today, or I was IMing with him today, and he was like, he had just bought this, and he was reading it, and and Bunch kind of had a difficult childhood with a difficult father. That kind of like in this book, and he was like, "It's like I don't know. He's like, I'm 100 pages in. I'm getting really nervous. This is so depressing. And does this kid survive the childhood? I'm like, beware, Bunch. It is not a pick me up. I hadn't thought of that before. People who've had difficult childhoods might have a hard time getting through this.
No, I don't make it a secret. I'm one of those people with a stepdad that's amazing, that I have stories and stuff. But so far, it's not triggering anything in me. It's a little bit cathartic here and there. Like, put it out in the light. You know what I mean? Right. But what is it, 365 pages? And I'm on page 54, taking my time with it. And I think it's brilliant. This is amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I was surprised at how much I liked it.
And
because I realized after I got it's like that's funny. I came 2 weeks ago. I didn't pre-order it. I said to myself, you know what? If they have it in the comic shop, I'll get it. And I threw an extra $40 into. I robbed this week's budget for that week, and I was like, you know what? If it's there, I'll get it. I just said that on an impulse. I wanted to get it, and it was there, so I bought it. And then as I was going home, I'm like, did I just waste my $40? As I realized, I hadn't read any Barry Windsor Smith since Storyteller.
I don't think he's put out
very little Barry Windsor Smith since Storyteller.
Right, there hasn't been anything.
Yeah.
I tried to do a little research on the history of the book getting made. I've heard tell in the 90s he had a Hulk story that didn't go anywhere. I heard
that
tell
was the 80s.
Well, I'm trying. I heard it in the 90s. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
But it was at the same point where they were talking about he had a pitch for Vertigo. I mean, it's weird. All these little Barry Windsor Smith stories. I heard Neil Gaiman mention that he had seen the 80s story, and I thought he was talking about the Hulk. Neil Gaiman even said like 20 years ago or something that he'd read a little bit of it.
Well,
I didn't know it was the same thing.
He kind of had a similar experience with a Storm graphic novel that he had written, and it got turned into another project. It was called Ad Astra. You know,
right. Yeah. I don't think I ever read that. I remember looking through that one, but I don't think I ever read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, like I said, I driving home with it, I was like, did I make a mistake? I was like, paying $40 for this book sight unseen, just because I was like, you know what, I haven't. And though I enjoyed Storyteller, it wasn't great.
The stories, the actual writing on the book just declined, but the art the art is fantastic if you can handle the color.
But the writing and art is masterful. I mean, it is just really, really good. I was actually surprised at how much I like, because I was kind of preparing myself to be disappointed by it.
I didn't realize how reactionary I was to how like I wanted to play on YouTube with a book. I mean, there's a lot of stuff just ain't come out. I'm not pumped enough to make a video on it. No big deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? I got 5 pages into this, and I knew I was going to be doing like some kind of review again. That's a good thing. That's not plugging.
Right. You're like, wow, this is really well done.
But it's, the guy is 72 this year. He's had this idea for the story at least since 84, 85. This is over half his life in one way or the other.
Well, that's where it started, but I see almost no resemblance to a Hulk story in this.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that there's a monster who really isn't. I mean, there's nothing Hulkish about this besides the visual of the monster, who really isn't a main character.
I was getting ready to say the visual of the monster. I can already tell he's not the monster. It's
right. Monsters is first, and he's really a minor character. There's about 10 characters in this, and he's probably character number 9.
But what got me? I mean, these guys haven't read it, so I don't want to get too big into the story. But it's the craft of the book.
Oh, it is.
I've never seen pacing like this. If you've read trades and collected editions and stuff, you can tell where the cliffhanger is. You know what I mean? There's nowhere to really stop. There's no good stopping points. Yeah. It's got a pacing that flows all the way through. Like Barry Windsor Smith just doesn't care. He's telling his story and it flows.
Right.
And he knows his audience. There's a page, and this isn't a spoiler. There's a page where one of the characters, it's in 1963 or 64. He goes down in his basement and he's going through his Golden Age comics of Captain America and Shazam and all this stuff. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he just starts ripping them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, whoa, stop that. Whoa, stop that.
I had to put it down. I found my part where I could finally put it down for a minute and put it in the book. Okay.
You just talking about pacing. When you get a chance, go back and reread The Amazing Screw-On Head by Mike Mignola.
I have.
I've never read it for the first time.
It is a masterpiece of pacing.
You know what the pacing of this reminded me of? I don't usually like to compare comics to movies, but this reminded me of an old-time black and white movie one of those movies where you're based on a play where you get a whole bunch of characters in a house, and it's like a psychological thriller. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf or something like that?
Yeah.
And there's just people, and there's such a leisurely pacing to it, and there's all sorts of intricate things going on between the characters, but they're in no hurry to reveal stuff. That's what this seemed like to me.
So you feel like it's paced more like a play than it is
Yeah, it really is paced more like a play, I'd say, or a movie.
Okay.
I mean, this is a grand opus for Winslow Smith. When you see the art, you might as well forget about all the other Barry Winslow Smith you've ever seen. The cross hatching in this and stuff is amazing, and he's drawn the best faces he's ever drawn.
You might want to go back to the studio again.
What's interesting about it to me is he was doing cross hatching in a couple of different ways.
Yeah,
he was doing cross hatching in his usual Barry Windsor Smith way to create depth or shade, like around a face or figure. But he was also doing cross hatching that was completely flat. That was a pattern. He was using cross hatching as a pattern rather than to denote light and shadow. I found that I never really noticed him doing that before.
Yeah.
I've seen Gary Gianni do that a lot, actually.
Yeah, I've seen other artists do that, use cross hatching as a pattern rather than to delineate a form moving back in space. But Barry Windsor Smith always did it to delineate a form, so I found that interesting. Yeah, Gore Vidal's in love with Janet Bailey. The mother is loving kindness. Her story, like Jacques and Cerebus, was my favorite part. Yeah, she really was. She was.
I don't think I'm not that far yet, but
yeah.
You compare it to Jacques' story, I'm in. For Vidal.
Good day, for Vidal.
But I got to tell you, this monster made me kind of realize that we're seeing the resurgence of like abandoned stories and stuff. You got The Last Ronin. That's a plot from the 80s that they did.
Right.
This finally came out. However, he worked on it since 84 or 85, whatever he's done, it's done, And then next month, they finally have Dave Sims' collected edition of The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, another abandoned project,
The abandoned story I would love to see. And this story might just be a myth because I've never seen it. But I learned of this from Dan Cuddy, who was the assistant editor on Spider-Man. He was Jim Salicrup's assistant in the early 90s when I was first at Marvel. And he told me the story about, and I'd heard it mentioned other times too, but I'd never seen pages of it. And sometime in the early to mid 80s, Marshall Rogers was supposed to be taking over Spider-Man. Except they say Marshall Rogers was having a cocaine problem. So he brought in pages of Spider-Man where instead of drawing Spider-Man, he drew Jesus. So it was the same Spider-Man story with Jesus flying around with webs and stuff.
I about had a moment where I was like, I've heard about this.
I want to see that.
Yeah. Well, I stopped because I'm like, I heard about it from you.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love that. Those are the pages I would love. I never thought to ask if anybody made photocopies of those pages back then. It was just kind of a store. Because that's the missing story I want to see.
When did
Phil was an editor
pay enough for somebody to have a cocaine habit?
You can't.
I guess in the early 80s you could. And cocaine was cheap then.
I think I could make that story work if I was an editor.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we have a challenge. Howard the Duck is the most powerful character in the Marvel Universe. Prove me wrong. I can do this. I can prove him wrong.
Anybody who says prove me wrong means don't prove me wrong.
No.
It means Howard you can't prove me wrong.
No, I can prove him wrong. Howard the Duck no longer exists in the Marvel Universe. Steve Gerber wrote a story where he was kidnapped and taken to Image and dyed his feathers black. Look that up. He's not in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. In other words, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Gore Vidal says Big's Numbers is the story that he wants to see completed.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be good.
I'd actually like to see the Jim Lee Punisher graphic novel that wasn't finished.
I would like to see 1963 by Alan Moore completed. Get that last annual out.
That's never going to happen.
Never.
Steve Bissett is working on Tyrant again.
That'd be awesome.
I'll believe that when I see it. Because I can remember when that first came out and he told us about his 100-issue of plans for it, and then 3 issues came out.
Yeah. Hey, I've been waiting for new Xenozoic Tales for 25 years.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
And he said 2 years ago that he was finally working on it, and we're still waiting.
He is working on it. I've seen art from it.
Is he up to page 2 now?
No.
Maybe. Mark is rather slow. But,
he's supposed to be doing 80 pages.
Well, it's also not going to be a traditional comic. It's going to be more like the Storms at Sea concept, where it's like a heavily illustrated novel.
Oh.
There's an obscure... Oh, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in other words, he doesn't want to draw comics.
He's just doing it in a different style.
Well, no, drawing comics is really hard compared to drawing illustrations. So it sounds to me like he wants to draw illustrations. So it's a lot more fun.
There's an obscure miniseries that came out from Image in the 90s, and it was right after Marvels by Kurt Busiek. And I think he took a bunch of Shadowhawk villains, and each one, they were a group, but each one was getting their own issue on how they lived their day-to-day life, right? And there was like 3 issues of it, and I thought it was like brilliant. You took these crap characters and you're making them cool. You know what I mean? It never ended. And then on comicboards.com, Kurt Busiek popped up on one of the boards I was at, and I was passively aggressively being like, "You ever going to finish that?" You know,
which series was that?
The Regulators.
Oh.
It's obscure, but there's like 3 issues came out. What are you gonna do? Man up. I said Regulators, and my wife goes, "Man up."
The Regulators. Who's that writing? John the Regulator.
All the Regulators went scuba diving.
Want to see my first comic of the week that I bought? Sure. I went with the 2nd issue of the Silver Coin. Still not on my pull list. I have to find out how many issues this is, if it's going to be a mini series, because I'm still not sure if I want more issues or not. It's each one is drawn by Michael Walsh with a different writer each issue. And this issue, the writer was Kelly Thompson, and it's kind of an horror anthology with this silver coin as kind of the MacGuffin for making weird things happen. And this one was about it was you know what it is? I kind of like them, but this is like a story you'd see in one of those, Alien Worlds or Tales of Terror from Eclipse or First Comics in the early 80s, except it's a whole issue. And like this one was a girl who was going away to summer camp, and the night before she was going away to summer camp, she was watching some horror movie. And so then she gets to summer camp, and the other girls are mean to her. And then somehow she gets a machete with this silver coin on it and starts turning into a horror villain herself. And it's fun. It's well done. The art is nice, but it was 8 pages of story crammed into a 24-page comic.
So it's basically the Lochnar from the movie The Heavy Metal.
Yeah, it's like I'm not sure if I want to continue with the series or not, but it's kind of okay. It's one of those series.
Nice. Maybe it all comes together once it's complete, unless it's
no. I think there's a different writer each issue. The first issue was about a rock band that had nothing to do with this. The first issue was, once again, it was a decent story. It was about a rock band. They were a local band who, were playing local gigs, and the lead singer had ambitions, but they had no way of fulfilling their ambitions. And then the kid found this silver coin in his mother's belonging. His mother, who had run away half a decade before, found this silver coin, and he needed a pick one night. So he grabbed the silver coin, and it made him play like a rock star. And everybody was like, wow, what is that silver coin doing? Because you sound so cool. And then of course they were getting bigger in the local scene, and maybe somebody's gonna. But then it ended, of course, since it's a horror story, in tragedy, where the guy was playing with this and he couldn't stop playing, and the people listening to him couldn't stop dancing and partying, and the club caught on fire and they all died because the silver coin made them all. So it's like these kind of horror stories.
Yeah, it's like Great White meets Leonard Skinner. I got you.
Yeah. They're perfectly fine. They're just, I'm like, do I need more of them? I'm not sure. It's one of those books I'd pull off the rack if I had not much stuff that week, but it's like never, it's never going to be on the rack.
It's like a Stephen King story. There's a hell of a band, but yeah, it's like they had a hell of a band.
So they're fun little horror stories.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's got to be about fun. You know what I mean? Like,
It
doesn't have to be Shakespeare. A couple years ago at an Ollie's up in West Virginia, I found the second volume of Jack Kirby's Commandy. Kirby did the first 40 issues. He didn't write the last few, but he did the art. This was like 20 to 40. I have all the Kirby stuff and everything, right? So I've had this for years sitting on the shelf, and it's really killed me that volume 1's not there. Every now and then when I look, I was like, let it go, no problem. So I get on eBay and I put volume 1 in my watch list, and I just let that sit there. Mm-hmm. Interesting things going on in eBay, and the 5 people who are watching are going to be glad they popped in here. If you keep something in your watch list, get it early, the seller may send out a discount if you just go ahead and buy the damn thing. So I got like a 28% discount. It's like odd discounts, 14%, 8%. This was 28% off of what.
Yeah, I could never figure out if the seller is sending that or eBay is sending it. I was wondering that.
It's the
seller.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I've gotten 3 or 4 things over that's why I have such a stack. I mean, I'm getting these deals, like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a set of books here for $350. Not to jump out of turn here, but I got the whole 8 issues were Image
of Mage.
This is the Kamiko, and each book reprints 2 issues, so you get the whole thing, right? I got this for $350, and I got the second Mage that I showed a few weeks ago. The one where he turned in the 90s and did the second part of the trilogy. I got that for $350. So
the whole set.
Yes,
I think I got it. It must be like 3 years ago now. I bought a whole set of the original Kamiko Mage for I think about $20 shipped.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's a good deal because I was missing a few issues of it.
Right.
I started Mage late. Well, actually not. I bought the first issues, the first issue of Mage, and liked it. But I was away at college at the time, so I didn't get to put it on my pull list because my comic shop was back home, and I was away at Westchester and across the river in Westchester at college. So I got the first issue, liked it, but then I was back in college and did, in those days, you didn't have the internet to put things on your pull list. So it was like by the time I got back to my story, it was like a few issues I'd missed. And I went, oh, well, I guess I'm not buying that series. Then it was like the following year. I also had a comic shop I'd go to sometimes over in White Plains. And they happened to have like, I think Mage went 15 issues, the original one.
Each one goes 15 issues.
Right. They had like the last 3 or 4 issues in their quarter bin. There we go. So I'm like, you know what? I'll buy them out of their. They're a quarter. Why not? So because I liked the first issue, I got them, and I read like the first issue, and then I read the last 3 or 4 issues. I was like, wow, this is really good. And then the same store in White Plains, I don't know if you've seen the Star Blaze. Mage was one of the first comics to be collected in trade paperbacks. So I think it was Star Blaze Graphics put out.
Star Blaze. They were owned by the same people that owned Starlog magazine.
Right. And they had volumes 1 and 2 there, which like were the issues I needed, because I think volume 3 was I had the individual issues of. So it's like I bought volume 1 and 2 in the Star Blaze Graphics Mage, and that's how I. So it's like whenever I read Mage, I read the trades for volume 1 and 2. Then I didn't have volume 3, so I'd read the individual issues for. Then cut to, I don't know, it was probably 15 years ago on Amazon. I was like, you know what? I may as well get that 3rd volume of Mage, the Star Blaze. I got it for like $3 on Amazon.
Yeah.
And then just like I said, 3 years ago, I was like, you know what? I want the original issues of Mage too. Why not? They're $20 on eBay. So I went and got a set of them just for the heck of it.
Yeah, I definitely want the originals. Now I have one Kamiko issue. Mage was interesting because if I got an issue of like Amazing Heroes or something back in the day, you'd see the black and white advertisement for it. Yeah. And then in the early 90s, when we got a comic book shop in town around 93 or 94, Moonlight Comics is what it was called, there were people who loved Mage. They were reminiscing about Mage in that comic book shop in this little town, you know.
Yeah.
This is funny. Do you remember? I don't think anybody does this anymore. People at the end of the year, this is like 5, 6, 7 years ago, used to make videos of what comics they wanted to buy that upcoming year. Usually back issues and stuff.
Yeah.
That used to be like a common video. I haven't seen one in a long, long time.
They would come out around December and January.
Yeah.
People would get a piece of cardboard. They would just write the books they planned on getting, you know, and then throughout the year they would mark them off. Sadly, the only people who really liked those videos were the other people doing it with them. That's why a lot of people don't remember it.
Being that I don't buy back issues, I never did that except for once in 2017. I wrote the year here. I was just as a lark. I made a list of stuff, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 things are clicked off on this list of 13, and one of them is Mage. I needed Mage 2 through 11, so I clicked that off a few years ago. But it's like there's stuff on here, like Frontline Combat number 3. I just was like, you know what? I am never going to get Frontline Combat number 3, but I like the cover. It's an old EC book. I'm like, I may as well put a couple of old books on here just for the heck of it.
You can get it really cheap.
And in Uber, I put Uber Volume 1 here back in because I didn't have them, and I finally got Uber Volume 1 like last year or the year before.
What did you say would be cheap, Scott?
So you can get a reprint of the EC stuff. You can get.
Oh yeah. That's what I usually get. But it's like I was just looking for stuff to put, and it's like the issues of Strangers in Paradise I was missing. Those are the ones I just ordered like a month ago. So they're on my list since 2017, and I ordered them a month ago.
Because you know what's always on that list? Strange Tales number 110. Because I have a feeling that the back issue collectors think that the first Doctor Strange is the easiest to get of Silver Age Marvels.
I still people. No one on my subscription list makes them anymore, and there was always for high priced keys.
Yeah,
just mine wasn't.
Yeah, I did one once, and I wanted the Generation Zero collection, just because.
Well, now on my feed, what everybody seems to be doing, and I haven't watched a one of them because I remember when we did the top 10 back in like 2012 or something, but everybody's doing their top 50 videos. And I can guarantee, and this isn't a slam, but I can guarantee what ends up happening is everybody's going to pull out their graded comics and everybody's going to get into a measuring contest to humble brag in a competition.
That always happens.
Stuff like that. So, Yeah, that's the thing going on at the time recording. But if we want to put some obscure stuff up, we need to put up these epic, Shadowline comics.
There you go. Yeah, this is my next one of the week that I think I'm going to put this one on my pull list. This is Geiger by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. And I enjoyed the second issue, but I mean, the criticism I have of it is that I have no idea what the story is yet. There's so much world building going on that post-apocalyptic. This guy is radioactive somehow. I don't know. People in Vegas, there's a bunch of people living in Vegas who it's kind of like the Stands Vegas, some evil guys running it, and a bunch of people are just trying to live there. And there's stuff going on. Someone found the old nuclear football from, the president used to carry in this issue. But I'm enjoying it. I just can't tell you what it's about because I don't know. I have zero clue what the story is. But I'm at least going to get issue 3, if not put it on my pull list, because I enjoyed it. But it's all world building so far. I don't know where it's going, what it's about.
Is Jeff Johns being Jeff Johns, or is he trying to be Alan Moore again, or some other?
I don't know. I have not read enough Jeff Johns to know anything about Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns. He's good.
I've read almost zero Jeff Johns.
His Justice Society, his Hawkman, fantastic. His Green Lantern is one of those runs that everybody should read, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a massive amount of stuff, though. And then all of a sudden, it was like after he did Blackest Night, he pulled an obscure Alan Moore story out of the 80s to launch the entire Blackest Night crossover. And then he's doing Doomsday Clock. And it's like all of a sudden he was trying to tap into Alan Moore and write like Alan Moore. I don't know what happened to him. I was like, Jeff,
Well, I liked it. I thought Doomsday Clock was a brilliantly crafted comic. It was just pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've discussed it before.
Well, many times, and it doesn't change. I feel bad for all the work that Gary Frank put into it, but
it is so well crafted. It is just pointless.
No soul. It's got no soul.
I don't even think it's got no soul. I just think it's a story that didn't need to be told and isn't that interesting.
No, it's not Blade Runner 1 because, it had Rutger Hauer to give it a soul. It's Blade Runner 2 because it had David.
Which I haven't bothered to watch.
Hey, at least it's not Highlander 2.
Oh, I came close. So went to Ollie's. And I think these are $3.99. I got to check my Instagram, right? But I've got all but 3 trades of the Suicide Squad. And I'm telling you, this Suicide Squad would be taken more seriously if they had started out with a better artist. That Luke McDonald dude just killed the book. And it really surprised me how John Ostrander really structured this book. I mean, I'm glad I picked these up so cheap. But
I knew some people at Marvel back in 2005, some fellow bullpenners who Suicide Squad was one of their favorite books. They were always like, this is a really good book.
Well, now that I've got them and I'll be able to flip through them and just kind of read a page here and there just out of curiosity, I was like, Luke McDonald completely killed that book. I mean, I don't want to hurt his feelings, but
he was never my favorite. So,
but I think that Suicide Squad is McDonald's best work ever. And compared to what he did before, and I remember him on Iron Man, and he came into Iron Man right after the Leighton Romita run.
I think it was the inkers fixing this stuff. Carl Kessel started out with him on that book, and I think the inkers may have had something to do with that.
That's when I stopped buying Iron Man. And another book, one I picked up off the shelf, which I have to say that I didn't make it through. I don't know if it was my mood or the book, but it's The Good Asian. And it takes place in the 1930s in San Francisco. So it was back when the United States still had laws in place limiting immigration from all of Asia. It started out with China, then it was all of Asia and the Middle East. And so that's part of it. And he's a detective from Hawaii who's visiting San Francisco. And there was some nice stuff in the beginning. I was kind of enjoying the artwork and the storytelling. But then somewhere midway through, they just started introducing characters and explaining who everything was, and my eyes glazed over. And I'm like, and I could have been tired. I was, doing some yard work. So it was like my eyes started glazing over, and I just started flipping pages going, oh my goodness, I'm bored out of my mind. And I stopped reading it halfway through. So I'm going to try to give it another read, see if it was me or the book, but that's not a very good review right there of I didn't even make it through the comic. Because I made it through everything else. Tim, did you read my comment on your channel about Ollie's customers who almost got into a fight over a bagged comic? Wow.
Yeah. I did. I cracked up because I've sort of seen that, but if you read Gord's comment, it was spectacular. Like they took it out to the parking lot too. Yeah, that's I think Gord's down in Texas, so I wonder, unreal. Well, I was trying to find some stuff. So yard sales, I try to find yard sales. They might be popping back up this time of year, but for $12 or $10, $2 off for the $12, I ended up getting some Marvel movie Blu-rays.
Wow.
Yeah, she had $3 a piece on them, and I was like, I got a $10 bill. Do you want it? Little did she know I had 3 ones also.
I just can't believe he's upgraded from VHS.
Yeah, it was the Blade Runner movie that Scott's been trying to get me to do Blu-ray for a while, and it was Blade Runner that made me a believer.
Yeah, I don't have any physical media anymore.
I think that's a mistake. They're already like censoring shows and taking out episodes on.
Oh, I can find them. Don't you worry. I know where to look.
He knows all the seedy places, I watched Avengers.
CD-ROMs.
Yeah, I watched Avengers 5 days before it hit America. That's all I'm going to say, sir.
And the next one I got is one with my name in it. It's a Bad Idea comic, so you can find my name as the production guy in the back. And it's Hank Howard, Pizza Detective in Caligula's Safe. And this was a weird promo thing because it's a $1 book that was supposed to only be on sale on Wednesday. Because part of whole Bad Ideas, whole marketing and their whole, their not every comic shop is allowed to sell Bad Idea stuff. The ones who don't want to sell Bad Idea comics are not allowed to sell Bad Idea comics. But like you were only allowed to only supposed to be selling this on Wednesday for some reason. I don't know. But my LCS owner Roy put one, since it's only a $1 book, put one in everybody's pull list. He ordered for everybody, just because who's not going to spend $1 on a comic. But the lead story is Robert Venditti and David Lapham, and it was a pizza detective. A pizza chain hired a private eye to keep things on the up and up amongst their pizza. So it's just him trying to figure out who broke into a safe in this pizza store. So it's a pretty straightforward, goofy little story. I'm a big David Lapham fan, so of course I liked it. And I'm also a fan of Robert Venditti. He wrote a lot of nice stuff for Valiant. He wrote all the Toyo Harada stuff that I really liked, along with Harbinger. I think I would always buy his books when he was writing stuff at Valiant. So I'm glad to see he's writing some stuff here too. But it was the backup story that I found really interesting too. Who's this one by? This one is, let me see. This is Matt Kint and Thomas Giorello. much.
Is there any book that Mankin is not writing these days?
He seems to be writing a lot of them. But this is a superhero story. And they've got a superhero team who fights problems. But the leader of the superheroes team, Power, is to his life has save points. What's his name? You got some name like Savor is his name, Savor. And it's also, as he says, it sounds like savior, and that's no coincidence. But that's just a little backup story. I have heard no news about when Stray Bullets is coming back. But anyway, the backup story, little 8-page story. Well, the lead story is only about 8 or 10 pages too. It's a $1 book, so it's not the biggest one. But they're this superhero team, and if things go wrong, Savor can back up time to a save point. So let's say he's about to they're about to fight this giant robot, and 2 of his guys get killed. He goes back to and only he remembers them. No one else remembers them going back. He goes back and comes up with a new plan. And he can keep coming up with a new plan until they beat the monster. That's how they introduce the story. But then at the end, the cool part is at the end, all of a sudden, his team is there. And it says 1 year later, somewhere in the American Midwest, and everything's just a disaster. There's wreckage everywhere. And his team, some of the members on his team, what is he saying there? He said, "Stop fucking around. Reset this so we can fix it." So they're trying to get the world, and they've got him tied up, and then one guy's waving a knife at him, even torturing him, saying, "Reset this so we can fix it. What are you doing?" And Savor's like, "I can't. I've gone back 1 year. I've gone back 10 years over and over again. I can't change things. This is as good as it gets." So I thought that was an intriguing opening story for, I guess they're going to continue that because it says to be continued somewhere. But I thought that was a nice little intriguing story where his save, whatever disaster happened to the United States, he can't stop it. He's tried time and time again and has, reset it even 10 years in the past and still can't stop it. So I thought that was a really cool little story. We'll see if it ever gets continued. I haven't, as the production guy, I haven't seen it on the schedule yet.
Oh, nice. Well, something I got here is, I don't know if you guys remember the Superman Batman run that Jeff Loeb did back in the early 2000s there, first 26 issues. But this is the second volume. And starting with issue 14, it had a little story called Absolute Power, which is one of the best Batman Superman stories ever. Simply because it was fresh. I still feel like I was reading some sci-fi story that I've read somewhere else, but not in comics. You know what I'm saying? But basically, 3 of the Legion of Supervillains, Cosmic King, Saturn Queen, and Lightning Lord, go back in time, and they kill Martha and Jonathan, and they take baby Superman, and then they go down and they take Bruce Wayne, and they raise them as brothers, and they end up running the world. Instead of the Statue of Liberty, you got a statue of Superman and Batman back to back, and they're living the good life. Then you have little characters like Wonder Woman and stuff. They, the first issue is just, you're starting to run around seeing things aren't right. We got to fix them. And she finds a bum in the subway, reminds him who he is, and it's Uncle Sam. You're Uncle Sam. And so they go around and they end up they find the Abin Sur under a pile of rocks because they killed him before they killed Hal Jordan before he became Green Lantern. And Uncle Sam becomes Green Lantern. He gets the green ring. He's got the willpower. So Metron shows up. Kingdom Come Superman shows up. And right when they try to fix things, something happens and it messes up the time stream. So now Superman and Batman are jumping different time streams. And they end up in a Gotham where all the Western heroes show up trying to shoot them and stuff. Batman takes 9 bullets. there's mountains of kryptonite for some reason, big boulders of kryptonite behind this bank for whatever reason. And they're bouncing around, and you get to see characters like that, right? But it's the ending of it. I mean, I can spoil the ending. It's been like over a decade.
Spoil the ending. Let's hear the ending. That's the good part.
But the whole point is that Kingdom Come Superman is like, hey man, I got to go back and fix this again. Like this has already happened. You got Metron and you got Darkseid with the demon in this, and Legion of super villains, and the Legion shows up working for him because times changed. Anyway, of course, there's a happy ending. They get back together. Batman has to remember his parents were supposed to die and all that stuff. You know, they try to tug at the heartstrings. But did you ever read Alan Moore's last Superman story, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
And how he got to have the family and shut the door. The last page of the story is Kingdom Come Superman landing, saying, everything's fixed. And as he's walking into this house, he slowly transforms back into the Superman that got the family. He takes out Kingdom Come and gives us back the last Silver Age story of Superman in the last panel. It's a very touching ending.
That's a nice ending. Let's go back to Comic Crack's comment when he says, was there a character in the UK show Misfits that had that power? Or am I misremembering? I don't know, but didn't they just in that last X-Men thing, didn't they give Moira McTaggart a power similar to that? But then it was found out that where like Moira McTaggart could reset time somehow. But then they found out that was taken from some recent popular science fiction story, and the author of the story was like, "Oh, look at that!" And then they dropped it. I heard.
Yeah, I heard. I don't know. It seems like I also heard something about like she was immortal. Like if she died, she would just come back or something.
It was something like her being immortal but could reset time, which is a little different than Saber and here.
She relives her life, remembering her past lives.
Yeah, but it's the same life over and over again. That's what it is. If something went wrong, she can know what it was. The world would end, and then she'd go back to the beginning. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. So it was like, they were living something would end the world, and she'd go back to the beginning, remembering it. She was the only one who could. She'd be reborn. And that was taken from some novel that was recently popular. And the author called out Jonathan Hickman on it. Then I just recently read, but that by the end of that series they dropped that.
Well, Jonathan Hickman hasn't really been telling any particular story, and he kind of lost control of what's going on in the X-Men. They're now about fashion. It's like a Kardashian show.
It doesn't matter. I think there's something happening this summer where the X-Men books are going to change everything again. Just like everybody predicted, when Hickman came on, the X-Men had just been rebooted or something, and they didn't get to finish the story, and they went with Hickman stuff, and everybody was like, "Why bother?" I know
there's too many X-Men books, too many X-Men editors, and too many X-Men creators for the center to hold. Especially if the center is a freelancer. So the idea that everybody was going to follow Jonathan Hickman's lead was a fantasy from the beginning. That was never going to happen. That's just the way comics are made. You can't make 4 other writers and 2 other editors follow your lead when you're a freelancer. If you were their boss, you could make them follow your lead, but you're not. I mean, that was just a fantasy, probably thought up by somebody in marketing that or some editor.
From the reader side, and we're so far gone. I mean, it's been over 30 years. It's 30 years since Claremont left the X-Men, and he was on them for 17. And he's one of the few writers that didn't feel like he stayed on a book too long. You know what I mean? Like you've seen that. We've seen that now, right? And I think that's one of the things that they're always still trying to recapture that X-Men magic that Claremont built up for 17 years. You know what I mean? He didn't set out to do that. He just stayed on for so long.
But also when you think about it, the magic wasn't in that many books. There was Claremont was writing 1 book, 2. How many X-Men books was Claremont writing?
He wrote one. He wrote the X-Men, and
Right.
then you had the New Mutants come out. I'm trying to think what else he may have been writing.
X Factor.
But
even like X Factor.
He didn't write.
I know he didn't write it, but I'm just saying, like, even those other, like, X Factor really had nothing to do with the X-Men. Besides being the original X-Men, it had nothing to do with the flagship X-Men title.
Only in the crossover.
Yeah, X Factor had to get set back on course. You had Bob Layton and Jackson Geis writing it, and they were trying to be hip for the 80s. I mean, they had a character that was talked about, Elvis Costello. So Louise Simonson came on and got that book steered back into the mutant world, you know. But Claremont just wrote Uncanny X-Men, New Mutants, and then later on he did Excalibur.
But I'm just saying that the X-Men magic was small in terms of in very few books.
You did not have a bunch of comics supposedly interacting with the same storyline. Right. You could read any of them and they would be themselves, even if somehow there was a little bit of continuity affecting what was going on. Like, you knew that the New Mutants lived in a mansion, but the New Mutants had their own stories.
Nowadays, with everything being events and crossovers, I don't know if you can do that. I mean, I haven't read the X-Men in so well. I did read some of that Hickman stuff, but
it feels disjointed.
Yeah.
If you don't have a Mark Grunwald there to obsessively keep all the continuity straight, they can't do it. They don't know how. And if you try to explain to them, they're not interested.
Yeah.
The other thing is that the X-Men were sort of their own corner of the Marvel universe. Claremont did what he did over here, and it wasn't until like 85 where they really started trying to pull them in continuity. I mean, it was really odd when you got that Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars and you actually saw the X-Men mixing it up with Spider-Man and the Avengers. It really looked weird when you opened that book, you know. They really stuck out. It was, you know,
and also now that you mention that, nowadays anyone can be on any team.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. When they merged and did the Uncanny Avengers back like in 2013 or whatever it was over. That was ridiculous. They didn't want to create new products, so they just smushed them all together and started mixing and matching. I mean, it didn't flow. It wasn't organic. Nobody remembers any stories out of it. Nobody's like, that was my favorite book.
I think there was something with Kang and some sort of Children of Apocalypse who grew up to become mutants, space samurais across time. I don't really get it. I remember that Havoc married Wasp, I think.
Remember when
anybody being on any team? If Conan can be on the Avengers, how long is it going to take for Thulsa Doom to show up in Guardians of the Galaxy?
There you go.
And remember when the order of the day was that Spider-Man wasn't on any team. He wasn't a team player. Now it's like every team has their own Spider-Man.
Every team not only has Wolverine, but Wolverine's got a different costume for every team. It's Avengers Day, you know. Oh my gosh, what was this?
I liked it when the X-Men wanted Spider-Man by the team. I don't know that story. Is that recent or old?
It's got to be an older one. I don't remember. I remember I fought the X-Men. All I heard was X-Men after the Dark Phoenix story hit. I've told the story. I had a friend that was in the X-Men when I was like 7 or 8 years old, but I fought him. I didn't come over to the X-Men until they put him on Asgard with Art Adams.
Old.
You know.
Yeah, the X-Men was a cult book.
Yeah.
Until like John Romita Jr., Paul Smith days. It was not a big seller. Well, the next book I got this week, funny, it ties into my 2017 list. Birthright 49, only one issue left of this. And my 2017 buy list, I have Birthright 1 to 4 on it.
Yeah, but why is Bruce Campbell in that book?
Good question. That does look a lot like Bruce Campbell. He hasn't looked like Bruce. You know what's funny? I don't think this artist does very good covers. The whole series I like the interior art, but the whole series I haven't liked. The covers have been meh. and they're well drawn. There's nothing bad about them. They're just not good. They're just not gripping images. I mean, would this make you buy this comic?
No.
I don't know.
It's jumbled up. I don't know what's in front of them. I don't care.
Right, exactly. And every single cover is like this. I don't know why.
The interesting thing about that cover is the logo.
Yeah, I don't know why that. I mean, and he does really nice inside art. There's no problem with his inside art. His storytelling is good. His drawing is good. His character designs are good. He just can't do covers. X-Men 35, Along Came as that old. Wow. I don't know if I've ever read that. I remember that title and I remember it existing, but
I'm on it.
But I don't know that I've ever read that. That's a Werner Roth issue.
Oh, I've never read it, but I know the cover. I can't get it to go full screen, but let me share this real quick. I've seen this cover, but I've never read the story.
Yeah, I know I must have seen the cover, and I remember the title, but I think they've used that title more than once.
Is it showing up?
There we go. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know no one who owns this, and I think I've only seen it on one wall. At a comic book convention ever.
I don't know that I've ever seen that issue in real life, but you don't see a lot of those. Werner Roth X-Men stuff.
Now I'm sitting here wondering if I've actually even seen it on a wall. It's that pose of Spider-Man I'm remembering. I don't know. Nope. He got us.
I think that's the first time that Spider-Man and the X-Men meet.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not entirely. Yeah, I think it is. But the stories. Look, that entire run with and Roy Thomas was winging it just because he had to work with Werner Roth. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, and what was Werner Roth was using a pen name in that too, wasn't he?
Jay Gavin in the early issues. He was still under contract with somebody.
Right.
So every now and then, depending on what circles online you're connected to when it comes to comics, you're going to hear about hot books. You know what I mean? Like, these are super hot and they're blowing up. We know what we're talking about, right? Jared looks away. So I do this every now and then. It's so weird. Like, it'll get on my mind and I'll end up going somewhere for the weekend. And I can't say where I go anymore because there are people who I know in real life who just watch this, will watch me so I can tell them where the honey pots are. It makes me mad. They've even told the people while they're paying how they found out about them. That's how I know. They would be like, you got YouTube. I'm like, I'm getting,
Got to keep his honey holes down on the down low.
So for $1 a piece at an antique shop somewhere, maybe West Virginia, maybe Tennessee, maybe North Carolina. Anyway,
could be Florida.
But for $1 a piece, I still have my run that I bought off the rack of the Secret Wars. So the She-Hulk show supposedly announced Titania is going to be in it. So everybody wanted the first appearance of Titania. Right. So this book was like blowing up. I don't know what people were paying for it, $1. For whatever reason, I don't think this is a super key or whatever, but Echo seemed to be blowing up with that character. And this particular issue of the New Avengers, I got this for $1. And then I bought this. I don't care that somebody took a grease marker and put 25 cents on it. But I got a missing issue of Invaders I needed where Thor pops up, but he doesn't remember it.
I have that one.
And then I found these in packs. Somebody took 2 issues each and put in. Apparently, they've been in those bags since the 80s. Wow. I saved them. I had the first 2 issues of this miniseries, and then it disappeared off the racks. I think you can only find the first 2, but I got that 80s Black Panther miniseries. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have the Brazilian edition of that.
Okay. And then I am collecting the Universe books. After what's been going on for 5 or 6 years, Mark Grunwald, Peter David, John Byrne, this stuff's getting better with age. If I hold it up to anything from the last 5 years, this is solid. It's got to be compared. Okay. So.
Have another drink.
I think your microphone ran the other direction because it didn't believe what you were saying.
Hello.
This is the most twisted issue of Ice Cream Man in a while, where they make you, the reader, complicit in the evil. Because the whole issue, the conceit of the issue, is there's a telethon going on for this guy here to save his life. So the Ice Cream Man is running a telethon because this guy, his whole, it starts with him getting a tooth pulled, and then the Ice Cream Man is like switches to this telethon mode where he's like, we're trying to raise money to save this guy's life.
Hold on.
But the total is always 0.00.
Is this an interactive book? Is that what they're doing? Are they breaking?
Well, it's not an interactive book.
I don't know what is.
And every now and then, someone in his real life, in the character's life, is like, "Hey, you're gonna make it, man. They're gonna raise that money." And the character's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And so then finally, we get to the Ice Cream Man is like, save this guy's life or I'll kill this dog too.
Oh no, they went National Lampoon. They went National
Lampoon.
Yeah.
But here's the twist, okay? He's going, and there's weird commercials in the middle of it too and stuff, where all of a sudden the Ice Cream Man, where does he say it? All of a sudden, right here, the Ice Cream Man says, "Let's talk brass tacks, people. This telethon is just a comic book printed on the cheapest paper possible. Given that, I'd like to offer you a deal. Drop the issue in your hands right now, and I'll donate my own money to keep Jerry alive. Put the book down, and I promise I won't shoot this dog. So if you put the book down and stop reading right now, you save the dog and Jerry. But of course, we have to turn the page to see what's going to happen." and of course, the rest of it, he is about how Jerry wasn't saved, and it's your fault for keeping. If you had stopped reading, Jerry would have been saved. And then at the very end, we get in loving memory of Jerry, and then the last page is in fond recollection of Roscoe the Border Collie. And down the bottom it says, "This one's on you, folks."
Weird amalgamation of
I kept reading, I killed Jerry and the dog.
This just reminds me of a Joker story from the Batman animated series crossed over with the Grover's monster at the end of this book story.
Oh, yes.
Grover. You know what? There's times where writers try to be clever and you can see it and you roll your eyes. Then you have times where you have somebody takes the Grover story, the monster into this book, like Scott said.
Yeah.
And
the cleverness works. The cleverness doesn't always work in Ice Cream Man, but the cleverness worked in this issue.
Well, he went black comedy. He went black comedy.
Yeah, he went really black comedy.
He didn't try to be funny. He went black comedy. That's why it worked.
And I, of course, thought of Daisy when I was reading this, because she's one of those people who can watch a horror movie where 1,000 people die horrible deaths, but if you kill the dog in the horror movie, she gets all upset.
Yeah.
I know, and she's not alone in that. There's tons of people like that. But that's, if you kept reading in this comic, you were the one who killed the dog.
We went to a conference years ago, and our co-workers, for some reason, they all wanted to do dinner and a movie because we were out, whatever. And they decided, what's that movie where death chases everybody? They survive a plane crash. They got
Final Destination.
So I'm sitting with these people. And I'm not saying we're total strangers, but we've never been outside of the offices, and they want to see Final Destination. So I'm sitting on the end. There's 4 or 5 of them. by the end of the movie, I'm laughing at every death, and when the lights come on, they're all just looking at me in a row, and I'm still sitting there busting a gut because I was like, "This is ridiculous." I tried to explain it's not the death, it's the ridiculousness,
Yeah, they did a good job with those movies. They're very imaginative.
Oh, they're entertaining. Yeah. Better than the Saw movies, I must say.
Yeah. Oh, looking at remember I was talking before about collecting the cross-gen stuff that I never collect because it's like I just noticed on here number 7 is cross-gen. The first Mystic and Sigil, the 3 series I never got, which I never got a single issue of since 2017.
So the series that I'm just going to go ahead and complete because I'm like, I probably have like 3, to go or something like that. It is DP7, the most unfortunate title of a comic book ever, guys.
What? You don't like directors of photography?
But what's cool is like, it's really weird. I don't know if I read them in the letter section. I don't know where I picked it up, but Mark Grunwald wanted a punk name like MC5 for his book, right? So they played around, and I don't know where the DP7 finally came from, but it's going to be like MP7 before that or something, Yeah. He was, but I'm telling you, man, fun books. It's a dead universe. You can get them all, and Quasar even went to the new universe finally,
So, sometimes there's something interesting about interesting failures, about dead universes, about projects that didn't work out. It's like you can fill in your mind. It's like sometimes my friend, you met him, Kevin Kobasic, friend from Marvel. You met him on our hangouts on Tuesday nights. He used to be an assistant editor at Marvel in the 90s and also drew some Deathlock. But he says something. He said something that I agree with sometimes too. When you watch a trailer and then are disappointed in the movie, you're like, well, the movie I made up in my mind isn't as good as the movie that was on the screen. And sometimes like failed universes are like that because it's like the ending in my mind of that failed universe is better than any ending they could have come up with.
There's. I remember sitting with the buddies, seeing the trailers and stuff. When you rented the VHS, you'd have to sit through the trailers and all that stuff. And the movies we came up with, I wished we had wrote them down before we actually saw the movies. It was better that way. I remember trying to like write songs based on lyrics of songs that what I thought they said. I'm like, oh, I'm wrong. That means I can use what I thought it was and stuff. So, we got people popping in.
Yeah, fun, strange. And I think that this is my. I have one other thing, but this is my last comic book I bought this week. Carmen number 3 continues to be good. In this issue, I'm still not exactly sure where this is going. We meet another angel of death, and we learn that there's rules to the afterlife, but we still don't know them. And it turns out Carmen here, angel of death, is sort of the rogue angel of death. The other kind of, I forget her name, angel of death, was like, will you behave? And we find out that this Carmen here likes to sort of linger with the people she's supposed to bring to wherever. And she writes complex reports about them, even though they change nothing. So it gave us a little more view into whatever's going on in this afterlife thing. And we just get more beautiful artwork and beautiful storytelling. And we learn more about this woman who died in issue 1. So it's been another good issue of Carmen. I think this is going 6 or 7 issues. I can't remember. Already published in France, but nice. Continues to be good.
Yeah, I might pick that in trade. I got that crossover in trade ordered for whenever it comes out.
I would double dip on this if they put it out on a nice big hardcover.
Yeah. So okay, I'll keep an eye on that. Nice.
So that's good stuff.
Well, this next thing was a complete spontaneous impulsive buy. and I really wondered if I just wasted money, but I'm all right. But walking through Walmart, and somebody actually set this down. Like, I would have made it to the toy section. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I wouldn't have ended up there, but I had more pressing matters before I could get to the back of the store. And this was like sitting there, like it was just waiting on me. And I'm like, oh no. But I now have the Cobra 6-inch Cobra Commander. You know? It goes with the Destro. That means there's only 2 more to get, and I heard they're Target exclusives, and we don't have a Target. But yeah, I can hear his voice screaming when I look at this. It's actually very sharp. I hate there's a glare on it, but they did a really good job on this. Wow. And it comes with extra fingers to point at people with. Extra hands. Yes. Yes. So he can tell Destro to shut up, you know, and Major Blood to get his act together, you know, and whine.
Every time I hear the word commander, I think of, what was that movie? Tom Cruise in Chicago doing the dance in his underwear. All of a sudden, I can't remember it.
Risky Business?
Yeah. Risky Business. There's one point where he borrows the car and drives it into the lake or something. And there's one line in that movie that I absolutely love that no one else remembers or quotes. And it's when after he drives the car into the lake, he's got it at the mechanics. And the mechanic looks at him and goes, "Who's the U-boat commander?" And opens the door and like water and fish come out. But every time I see Cobra Commander, I hear that guy saying that line. Who's the U-boat commander? I was like, I'm the only one who loves that line from Risky Business, I've discovered over the years.
Tangent. Okay, talking about movies. Have you guys seen Das Boot?
No.
I don't know if I've actually seen it.
It's an excellent movie. I recommend that to anybody.
I may have seen it on PBS many, many, many years ago.
It's kind of like the Jimmy Corrigan stories. You know, you don't want to watch it if you're depressed. Because it's not the feel-good hit of the summer by any stretch, but it's.
We're gonna have to be saying that about monsters now too.
It's a really good movie.
The line from a movie that I have no idea why it cracks me up, because it's really not even that funny. I don't know what. I mean, I have no explanation, but it cracks me up every time. It cracks me up just to think about it. It's from Napoleon Dynamite, where he looks at that girl and goes, "I caught you a delicious bass." You know,
sometimes the words just go together in a funny order.
Yeah.
My last thing to show is an impulse buy of my own, a nostalgia-based impulse buy. I got Marvel Visions.
Wow.
Number 30. And I know it's funny. I find all my impulse buys of stuff like this cost $10. I got it off of eBay. This is like the Marvel Age magazine, except is this the late 90s? Hold on, let me see what year this is.
I think they've got a string of books coming out for Marvel called Marvel Visions or something. Voices. I'm thinking Voices. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, no, this is 19. This was like a fancier version of Marvel Age from 1998, and this is the 30th and last issue. But I got it because in one of my and it's got like, you know, all sorts of interviews and
love that stuff. Yeah,
on the Marvel comics, but the reason I got it was in one of my Marvel alumni groups, somebody posted this page that Greg Schiegel drew. Greg Schiegel, friend of mine, he was an assistant editor and also he's an artist too. He drew some what ifs for Marvel. He's also gone on to draw his own stuff since then. But there was this one page of like, this is the Marvel's editorial staff as superheroes.
Hold on.
So this is the 1998 Marvel editorial staff as superheroes. And of course, let me show you this. Of course, me being me, I had to scan it in and make a print out of it. So we've got like, who do we have? There's Tom Brevoort as the 3D man. There's Bobby Chase. Who's Bobby Chase?
Who's Dr. Doom?
Bobby Chase. Who is Bobby Chase? Is the She-Hulk. That's Marie Javins over there, who is now, of course, the editor-in-chief of DC Comics. Polly Watts. There's Steve Saffel as Nightcrawler over here. So it's like I spent $10 just to get this picture out of sheer nostalgia. There's Ralph Macchio as Daredevil. So it's like, and I noticed it's like if you're buying something sort of like this on eBay, it's always like, $3, $4, $5 for the magazine and $4 or $5 for shipping. So it's like, I got that random issue of Marvel Age like 6 months ago, $10. I got this, $10. So it's like everything. We're gonna have to go through this one. It's got A Word with Mark Waid, Dialogue with Peter David, action figures by Art Asylum, Joe Casey on Cable, Liquid Color, Guru, Chris Leitner, The Punisher in the Old West, and more. Fantastic Four articles, and you can. So this is what was going on at Marvel in 1998. So, but I wanted it for that one picture.
Yeah, if it was a 1939 magazine, I bet Paolo could have got it through Media Mail.
Oh, this came by Media Mail. Don't you worry. But it came right away. It didn't get stuck.
That's not even a comic. That's actually a promotional magazine.
Yeah. So you can.
So it's not supposed to go. No, but it's not supposed to go through Media Mail.
This is an advertisement.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Final issue.
It's an infomercial in print.
Yeah. All you need is what is the name of the guy that yelled a lot? Billy.
A couple guys that yelled a lot.
The guy who sold vacuums or something.
Huh?
The guy who died, Billy something.
Oh, you're thinking about Sam Kinison, right?
No.
No? Oh,
this looks like state-of-the-art 3D graphics from 1998, and it is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that title is hard to read.
That's the old. We can do logos with computers now, so let's make them as fancy and unreadable as possible.
I feel like
a logo that says Vision that makes you question whether or not your vision's actually working.
It makes me feel like I'm supposed to have special glasses to look at that, like Valiant Vision or something.
Yeah.
Count Von Strange says, hold on. First off, Mastodon says, I saw Das Boots in high school German class. Great movie.
It is.
Count Von Strange says, one of my favorite lines from movies is from Hot Rod. Pools are perfect for holding water. Just say hello. Infomercial Billy. That's hilarious. Oh, man.
Oh. But that was a pure nostalgia purchase, that Marvel Visions.
Oh, I'm down with it. Things for the 90s, I think people need to realize that we're now starting the 30 years ago, and it's going to be catching up to the end of the 90s. So I think we're going to have a big wave of nostalgia with a lot of new people, the way we've had it for like the 80s and stuff that can remember it. So, you feel nostalgic for the 90s, don't you?
Nostalgia.
No.
Not a bit. You're not going to miss it a bit. You don't miss it a bit.
Definitely not music-wise. No.
Yeah. You don't miss the 90s music? Yeah. I actually stopped listening to pop music in the 90s. So I don't. Just when grunge came on, I stopped listening to pop music. I don't know what's happened in pop music.
Tim's got a JC building up here, so it takes to pop out.
No, I'm good. I've got a beverage here, man. It's just like your opinion, man.
I like a beverage. Yeah.
I didn't stop listening to pop in the 90s, but I started listening to the stuff that made me stop listening to pop.
The 90s was interesting, man. It was like, to me, the music of the 90s, like it started out like really good. It's like they were, started out really good, and then it's like they just got deeper into the heroin rock. And then all of a sudden, man, it was like Smash Mouth came out, and I'm like, what the hell's happening? And then we end it with like all the boy bands and Britney Spears and stuff. And I'm like, what happened? What's going on?
By that time, I had already discovered drum and bass.
Yeah.
It's the other instruments on top of that make it even better. But there was a few good things that came out in the 90s. You know?
Oh, there's tons of great music that came out in the 90s. It's just it stopped in 95 for some reason. You know?
No, I still bought all my music all through the 90s and 2000s, but it's just not pop music.
Yeah, I remember 1995 is the year that happy hardcore stopped being relevant in Germany.
I have never once known what's relevant in Germany.
Happy hardcore was a genre of electronic music that was designed for people who wanted to get high while already high.
Well, thanks to the Berlin Wall coming down in high school, and they had us watching it on the news and stuff. I found out David Hasselhoff was huge in Germany.
No. I always have to explain this. Everything goes number one in the German top music charts. Everything. And so did David Hasselhoff. But it doesn't matter.
I have a little piece of the Berlin Wall somewhere that Marie Javins brought me back from Berlin because she travels everywhere. And
I had a friend who claimed what they had was a piece of the Berlin Wall, and then they were like, "You want to hold it?" And I'm like, "I don't want that mojo rubbing off on me." You know, I feel like
this was just a souvenir she got. They actually sold little pieces as souvenirs.
Back in the 70s, there were ads in Famous Monsters magazine where you could send off a mail order and get soil that came from Dracula's castle in Transylvania.
They also sold, they also put a bunch of garden rocks in boxes and sold them as pets in the 70s also. Yeah. And people bought them, so.
I remember the pet rock.
I remember seeing little boxes of bubble pop so you could pop them. You buy those.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a comic book related thing that I saw people discussing on Facebook today that made me always go, what statistics are they talking about? Where they said recently, for the first time, manga as a total have outsold American superhero comics.
Yeah, they have.
And I said to myself, what does that mean? And why do they say American superhero comics? Because to which they just meant Marvel and DC. And what do they mean by them? I mean, so it's like they don't count any of the rest of the comics industry. They don't count Kickstarter that sells a lot of comics now.
I don't think they know what they're talking about.
I don't either. I'm like, I think this is just one of those statistics that really doesn't reveal reality. And
exactly,
you're going to compare Japan's entire output of comics as opposed to the United States one genre of comics.
It's not Japan's entire output. The Japanese comics that come out in the United States are the things that have already been successful there.
Right.
But to 90% of the American audience from like the 70s onwards, that little sliver that you're just talking about, that's all they know.
Uh-huh.
That's all
they know. I'm not saying manga isn't selling well. I'm just saying that headline made me question exactly how they were making those statistics.
Sure.
And it's like, and you're not going to. And all we hear when people say, "Oh, comics are in a slump," is, Raina Telgemeier selling 3 million an issue, or this guy's there. All of a sudden, people bring all the young adult comics into it. I'm like, we're not counting them all of a sudden.
Well, we don't know. We don't know how to count them and how to compare them because they're not sold in the same place, and they don't appeal to the same demographics.
They're not tracked using the same tracking methods either.
Yeah.
Okay. I was about to say that I actually think they are outselling. And Paolo just mentioned exactly what I was going to say about being sold in different places. You go to Books A Million, I mean, with my own eyes, and I can show you what my wife has bought and stuff. We're in that section with the manga books.
Right.
Tons of kids there, different ages, and a few adults. You go
right in the floor.
You go all the way out onto the other side where the superhero books are, the graphic novels, not floppies, okay? Not floppies, but where the graphic novels are and stuff like that. Nobody's touching them. There's two shelves of Marvel stuff that's been there for two and a half years that nobody has touched and stuff. So
there's something that nobody wants to admit, but if any people came from outside to read whatever it is that's being sold in the direct market, you are never, ever, in any circumstance whatsoever, convince them that they have to come in every month to buy another episode of the same series.
Oh, I got you. Okay. That's interesting.
They want to buy one book and they want to read it. And after they read that one, they may want to come in and buy another one book, and they read that, and it has to come, and the story finishes. There's no, now you got to read the next month, and you come back, it's next month, and you come back to the next month, and now it's time for the event, and your story gets sidetracked, and the comic gets canceled. That cannot possibly exist if you want to sell to mainstream audience. And that's ultimately what makes the Raina Telgemeyers sell to the mainstream audience, is because they get a book. It's simple.
Yeah, but that's what Marvel and DC have been doing for years. They collect
no, they
everything
haven't.
in trade. No, you collect everything in trades and you sell it.
But those trades are not sellable to a mainstream audience, because even the trades now are ongoing.
Yeah, but they end. They have finite stuff. As far as I know, I don't read them. I mean, we all complain that everything's written for trade. So I have to think that means something to the people who are looking.
It's decompressed, but now, okay, you knew that the Dark Phoenix saga, if you read it together, it's one story. But if you read any comic of the Dark Phoenix saga, it's one comic.
Yeah, but the Dark Phoenix saga was the late 70s.
Yeah, but but it doesn't matter. That's not the issue. The issue is that each comic had to stand on their own as a product. The story is part of the product, and the part that you have an ongoing storyline is a bonus.
I'm talking about the stuff Marvel and DC is making now for the trade.
But they don't make it for the trade. Those 17 pages that you had in 1977,
right,
are now 120.
Yeah,
writing for the trade means only decompressing.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I really don't. Being that I don't read Marvel and DC, so, but it's like The Walking Dead was all set up for you to buy the next trade. You would buy trade 1, you'd get hooked. You'd buy trade 2 every time there's new trade comes out. Walking Dead did that very successfully. Invincible's doing that now, but wasn't as successful when. So there are some people doing that, but I don't know. I think that's what Marvel and DC have wanted to do. Yeah, actually, I think the bigger problem is comic book storytelling has progressed so much over the last 30 or 40 years, but the general public hasn't seen any of it.
Yeah, so public perception.
Well, it's if you let's just take Jonathan Hickman's what was the name of that latest Jonathan Hickman big thing that he did last year? I can't even remember. That Jonathan Hickman story, House of X.
Oh, House of X Powers of 10. Yep.
House of X Powers of 10.
Yeah, how not to make a trade paperback.
Right. Well, no. Well, let's just say that there's one big hardcover of that. Okay, that is a finished work.
No, because you did not read House of X Powers of 10. You don't know that thing.
I
300.
I tried to read it and couldn't make it through it.
Yeah, because it's a 300-page promo for the relaunch of the entire X-Men line.
Let's just say it was finished. Okay, let's just say it was a finished work. House of X Powers. I don't dispute you that it's not, because I couldn't make it through it. But the problem is taking that. You could give that to you or me or any of us, and we'll read it fine. You give that to the general public, and it's like showing a person from 1954 a movie from 2021. They won't be able to. Storytelling in movies has changed so much that if you take show a movie, all the quick edits, they won't be able to follow it because we have been watching movies all this time. We're up on all the new stuff, but if you haven't watched movies in 40, you won't be able to follow the story. Comic books are like that. We've all been reading comic books for 40 years, so we've seen all the changes in storytelling. We know storytelling in comic books is a lot more sophisticated now than it was in 1972. But the general public hasn't read any of those comics. So when they read House of X, Powers of X, they can't make heads or tails of it.
Let me slow down for a minute. What are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that comic books are harder for people to read?
They're more esoteric. We have the visual storytelling of a comic is more complex now. Manga isn't, by the way. Manga is very simple. Their storytelling. They give you one picture at a time. It's like if I were to show you at a Marvel comic here, let me pick up one of these. Let me pick up. Hold on, Carmen. Carmen is really sophisticated storytelling. Oh, and so is Ice Cream Man. We know exactly where to look on this page. We know exactly how to read it. We know exactly how to follow it. And there's other, like he does things like we know exactly what this means. We know that this right here, over here, this side, is three different, the same two characters at three different times. This is him meeting the waitress, him wooing her, and him finally winning her. We know that because we have been following visual storytelling our entire lives.
Well, that's also a very good example.
Your average person can't follow this because they're used to, this is too sophisticated. They don't know where. You don't know how many people over the years have said, I can't read comics. I don't know which panel I don't know what to read next. I've heard them say that more than once.
That one panel, the three drawings.
Right.
That's a very good example of something you can do in comics that you cannot do in other mediums.
Right. And that's why your average person can't follow it.
Dude, the average person can't even hardly get through a newspaper.
I know, but they definitely can't follow. Like the storytelling in this is so sophisticated.
It is sophisticated, but here's the thing: that is sophisticated. House of X, Powers of 10 is not. Superhero comics are not more sophisticated now than they were 20 years ago.
Visually, well, I mean, even 20 years ago, people couldn't follow the stuff.
I think they could.
High end of this is sophistication and clear to us.
But comment just nails it.
What was that?
Screw those people. Yeah.
But I think I can get people to read that, to read Carmen. And people will try to enjoy it. If I give them an issue of the regular X-Men, they're going to be bored.
I mean, I can't disagree with you because I couldn't make it through House of X, Powers of X. Mm-hmm. But I have to figure there's some Marvel and DC comics that are good. I just don't read them. And there's some that I could follow. I just don't read them.
But here's another thing: the best-selling comics in France. The best-selling, whenever it comes out, it's a new Asterix. And Asterix, even though now it has new creators because the original ones are dead, it still reads like a good old-fashioned Asterix comic.
Right.
And those are the best sellers. They sell simultaneously 27 million copies in 20 countries when they launch.
And I said manga, that's part of the sales secret of manga too, is their storytelling their visual storytelling is basic.
Yeah.
But
they have comics like Carmen in France, and those also sell well enough. And
but I'm sure people, like I said, people in the U.S. haven't. I could not give Carmen to someone who's never read a comic. and expect them to understand it.
Well,
that's most people here in the U.S.
Yeah, let me slow the train down for a little bit because it's moving forward, and there's little things I think to interject, because I'm sitting here really trying to think of anybody who's read a comic book and got lost. And I'm trying to think, I can't think of what the comic book was, but it's happened once or twice, and it's because it was a poor artist. I think artists don't get trained. I don't think they have internships or whatever anymore, because the character's face will show you which way to go. An artist is supposed to draw the story where it flows.
I'm separating poor artistry from visual sophistication in general.
Yeah. But, well, let me throw out one more thing about the manga thing, about the simple storytelling. I've read some of the Elfin Lied that my wife has, but I've also read some Nausicaa. And to me, it's different levels of it may be simplistic drawing in some of them, but the stories are more engaging. They're the
simple drawing. Simplistic drawing is an insult. I just want
simple drawing
as an art teacher, I have to tell you that don't use the word simplistic in a critique, because it's actually an insult. Well, use simple if you mean simple. That's
it's good.
I have to teach my students that all the time. Don't use simplistic.
We're talking amongst friends here. It's cool.
I know. I just like that too. That's just one of the things I have to say every now and then. Like,
but what gets me is that the
story use simplistic when you mean to insult something.
Yeah, the drawings may be simple, but but it doesn't stop the flow of the story. They actually get engaged with the characters and stuff that are in there. It's two different things.
It's two different, but like to somebody who's never read many comics, this issue of Ice Cream Man will just baffle them, because he's playing with the form, he's playing with the reader's expectations. They're playing visually with all sorts of strange tropes. That I think is something that I just think that's something that's real when it comes to other people, people trying to get comics into the hands of people who don't read comics. I think manga has an advantage with their simple storytelling, because American visual storytelling is so complex these days. On the good side, it's also crappy.
Manga's not this homogenous.
No, I'm just saying the popular
it's not homogenized as many Americans think it is. If you give an example, like you talked about Nausicaa earlier, if you were to compare Nausicaa to anything that was done by Masamune Shirow, like Appleseed, very, very, very different.
Yeah. We also get the best of the Japanese stuff,
hopefully,
over time over here. So it's not like they're exporting their crappy sellers. It's not like they're exporting their unpopular stuff.
The Americans.
No, we put a lot of Batman and Superman and Spider-Man out in the world. There's not a lot of Booster Gold out there in Europe, I don't think.
There shouldn't be. I mean, the other thing is that the last time that I've actually paid attention to what we sent out that got popular in America, it's going to date me how old I am, but it was Hellboy and Powerpuff Girls. Those are the last two things that I remember people going nuts for in Japan that we sent to them.
See, manga has an incredible flow, but a lot of the times it's a one-trick pony, as he says before. The problem I have with a lot of Japanese storytelling is they use a handful of tricks over and over and over, and I find it tedious after a while. Not all of them, not everything, but some of them. It's just like, oh, this again. Speed lines. Here we go. My eye will follow the speed lines. Yay, the book's over.
I'm going to put a page here from a Portuguese comic, and the artist is manga influenced. She's in her early to mid 20s. Let me see if you can you see the progression between the panels.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is easy to? Okay. So, do you think this is easy to follow?
That one, not particularly. Only because it's simple in that it might be, but they're walking in so many different directions, and it's easy for me to follow. I don't know if it'll be easy for someone who doesn't know what panel to, because we can all pick up on the visual clues of what panel to read next.
Right.
Hold on.
Because we know
Hold on.
them. And those visual clues have gotten more sophisticated over time.
See, you're making me want to test this. I'm wanting to get a room, put down some comics of different variations and a secret camera, and have people wait and see if they pick up and see if they can follow.
Well, here's a question.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. If you were to give, you just talk about people, the storytelling has become more sophisticated over time, which
Right.
it has. If you were to give the average person a copy of Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, do you think that would make a big difference on how they view things?
I
don't think people are that smart.
I've seen it.
They are.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I just saw pictures of people filling up plastic bags and tubs with gasoline. I don't know if that person.
A lady in South Carolina actually caught on fire after she did that.
Yeah, I don't know if understanding comics will help that person.
Well, we're starting to get into like different walks of life with different people,
right?
Yeah,
and that's a whole other conversation of how people discovered comics. The comics were waiting for them while they're in a waiting room. Comics found them. There's a lot of people. The comics found them, but the Scott McCloud thing that Scott just said, I have seen people that read that, and all of a sudden it was like something clicked for them.
Oh yeah, I think How to Understand Comics is a really good book. I think if you want to understand comics, that book will really help you out.
I'd make it recommended reading for anybody that's into comics.
Yeah. No doubt.
Read this.
But I don't know if you could hand that to some random stranger on the street and they'll care.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's what I just mean.
But getting back to the whole original point that you were talking about, the numbers and what outsells what, okay. If you're not tracking things using the same methods, that makes it irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was wondering what they're. I knew they were
going through BookScan.
Yeah.
And then comics distributors are probably going through Diamond's numbers. Until recently.
Just that whole headline and people discussing it made me go, I know the methodology, and this is nutty.
Yeah, that's a really clickbait title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now it would be interesting, if you were omnipotent, to know what sells and why and everything. It would, if you had a God's eye view of things, it would be interesting to do some comparisons. But that's not going to happen.
No, because we don't even know what. Nobody knows what sells. Ever.
I'm of the belief that I'm going to say that, it's up for discussion, but I'm of the belief, just for what I've seen with my own eyes, what's in my house, what's around here. And I do believe that manga is outselling American comics at this point.
Could be. I don't know.
It's a deal that's you.
Once again, it all depends on how you're measuring it.
Well,
also that's going to vary greatly by the region too.
Yeah. By region, I agree with that. That's what I mean. I'm like, but I think one of the appeal is that, number one, the money. Like Paolo pointed out, people going into a store once a month to finish the story. You get it right there, all in one volume, maybe in 3 or 4 parts or whatever. You get it. There's a beginning, middle, and end, which people like. That's why Attack on Titan, I think, really, had a huge following, because everybody's waiting for that.
My God.
Yeah,
Well, also because everything. It's not just the comic itself; it's the fact that there's a movie, there's an animated show, there's a comic, and people are really susceptible to marketing.
This was going to be my second thing here. I actually was going with that, but
and they tie that all in.
If you get the Nazca 2 huge volumes and you compare it to the movie that came out in 1984, okay, like. It's say this is the 2 volumes. That cartoon only covers that much of the book. So people see the cartoon, they go get it, and they have this whole story, and they get the sequels instantly right there. You follow me? Yeah. To me, it seems like a more honest way of tying things in marketing. There, you get more bang for your buck. We just barely scratch the surface.
But the only reason you get more bang for your buck with manga is it's cheap foreign labor. It's already. I'm just saying. No one's ever mentions that too. It's because
you don't think American comics, the way these guys get paid nowadays, isn't cheap foreign.
It is, but it's even cheaper because they're already made in Japan. They're already finished. They've already made their money. They can sell it over here, and it's all gravy.
Well,
It's
you know what?
They can sell it. That you don't have to. They don't have to pay for when they bring it over here. They don't have to pay to have it produced. It's already produced.
Well,
that's what it is. So you can undersell American comics. That's why when you go into the store and you have a choice between a 300-page Japanese comic for $9 or a 300-page American comic for $19. Pick the $9 one.
Well, I mean, we can discuss the morality of that, or is it a cheat?
Well, I don't know if it's morality. It's just reality.
It's a fact. That's
a
fact.
It's reality.
Yeah, I want to buy cheaper. I mean, I buy a lot of my stuff secondhand to begin with. Get something cheaper that's new. Sure.
Right.
That you have to think that way if you're selling
and
something.
That counts a lot in a bookstore for how Japanese comics have been able to sell so well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors, but at the end of the day, if this stuff wasn't good and clicking with a lot of people and had originality or whatever, it wouldn't be selling, period.
Right. I think another part of it is also that the Japanese comic industry wasn't infantilized like the American comic industry was.
Okay.
That's a big part too, and that's a big part of why a lot of people still read comics in Japan. Adults read comics in Japan because they've got good distribution. Since not only was the American comic industry infantilized by the Comics Code, but so was distribution, because you could only distribute to children, to places where children. Good one.
Jared gets a point.
So Japan has a robust comic industry, and they have a robust comics distribution, which includes us now.
Right. No, and also one thing in Japan too, you didn't have the stigma of, matter of fact,
right.
The United States is only one of the very few nations that had this problem, where you had the stigma of like comics is only for children.
Right. That's because it was infantilized.
We still have not recovered from that.
No,
point for not. Scott. I'm wondering if we renamed comics in America, the actual comics, if we renamed them, what would happen? Nothing, or would it help? You know what I mean?
Rename it from comics to something else? Is that what you're saying?
Don't call them comic books anymore. Don't call them graphic novels. I mean, you say manga. I read manga. And now that you made me think about it.
Well, manga is just a Japanese word for comics.
Yeah, but we don't know that. People in America don't know that in general.
Yeah, you couldn't infantilize the European industry because the French have a technical term for comics. Bande dessinée is a technical term that describes what it is. Right. And even the Italians call it fumetto.
Well, a matter of fact, I was once doing a lecture, in the 90s at a museum in Brooklyn on comics. And the woman there who was giving the lecture was from Japan. And part of we were mentioning manga, and she's like, "Why do you call them manga? Manga just means comics." I'm like, "That's just what we call Japanese comics around here. That's the distinction."
It's repackaging. I'm talking about repackaging. Yeah. I'm sure if I really thought about it, there's been products that probably came out in the 80s, let's say, that failed, and they repackaged them like 5 years later. And just by giving it a whole new twist,
well, like I said,
packaging it becomes popular.
Since the Japanese comic industry wasn't infantilized like the American comics industry was, they learned how to distribute, how to market, how to tie together all the different. It's like American comics still don't know how to tie together movies and comics. Mm-hmm. And they're just decades ahead in terms of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to go down this road. I mean, I'm agreeing with you, but it's making me want to complain why American comics don't do it. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is about.
Yeah, it's
rein it in. Yeah.
I don't know how much of a factor this would be, but you're talking about distribution. If you're just talking about, I realize this is oversimplification. But if you're talking about just geographically, just Japan alone, not factoring in any of the other, Asian countries, their distribution chain is I mean, from moving books from point A to point B is a lot smaller than the United States.
Yeah, I'm not even talking physical distribution
right,
like that.
I'm just wondering how much something like that would eventually factor into the whole bang.
We built in the because of our nukes, we built highway systems in the 50s that made our distribution system wonderful. But what I'm talking about in distribution is where you can get comics.
Yeah,
we can get comics at comic shops and some at bookstores. From what I've heard about Japan, you can get comics in lots of places. They have vending machines on the subway.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be like that in the 60s and 70s. Here, you can get them on newsstands, convenience stores, grocery stores.
But you used to be able to get them where children would get them.
Right.
And that's what it was. And then they got tired of selling cheap comics to kids even, and that went away.
See, I keep coming back around to the product. I think they remember what they're trying to do and what their job is, and it's to sell books. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, they have remembered what their job is at the end of the day. And I think a lot of American comics have forgotten that. They forget the part of the business side of it. What they're supposed to be doing. They forgot they're making comics,
Well, one of the good things about American comics, especially the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, was being that they were niche and kind of underground, is they could do new and creative stuff.
Yeah. And now
you could make interesting, even in the mainstream comics, you could make interesting stuff.
I think we're on the same page because what you're saying is what I'm saying is lacking today. People are afraid. Yeah. There's just a culture out there. You can call it what you want, but there's a lot of people scared to death of being canceled.
It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with being online. It has to do with, but that has nothing to do with the creators. I'm talking about it's the corporate culture of comics are now not because nobody online has anything to do with how comics are created. Nothing. That's all. Some corporate executive making $500,000 a year doesn't give a crap what someone says about Spider-Man on Twitter. They give a crap about selling $10 million worth of Spider-Man T-shirts to whatever market they want to open up.
Right.
We got to get Crack on here one night. We really do. We got to get Comic Crack on here one night. Yeah. I'd want to hear his take on what he just said here. So yeah. I'm sorry, guys. Go ahead.
I don't know what he's not agreeing with. We're saying the focus of the business is dramatically different in North America versus Japan.
Well, that's what
we're not even saying North America. We're saying the United States. Canada doesn't even have a comic business. Okay? Ha! Take that, Canada.
Captain
Comic Crack, I just want to say
tonight hit you in the head.
Yeah, Comic Crack, we're going to say that Jared's comments do not reflect this channel or other participants in this stream. I needed to wrap this up now, but I can't leave like that. No, we're not leaving on that point. We're not going to. We're not.
I'm just funning with them.
I'm just saying. Yeah, we can't pick on our neighbors up north and not give them a chance to report.
Terrence brings up a very good point. When you're typing comments, it could come in like 5 minutes later, and then
that's what I mean.
Something, what have you.
Yeah, we need to get we do need to get the Comic Crack on here sometime. So yeah.
You can have dinner with us.
Bring a beverage. Paolo and I have had a good time.
Paolo's going to make you eat some kind of a cephalopod that's cooked in its own ink. So.
I just realized I don't think I have any idea what the Canadian national anthem is.
Oh, Canada?
Is it Oh Canada? That's all I know, Oh Canada. But
yeah, and I actually was at like some game where some Canadians came. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was some sport in the 90s. And people around me freaked out when I stood up for their national anthem. I'm like, have some class, people. Have some class, But I think the only thing I wish we would have touched on a little bit was like the regional thing, because I'm talking about what I see around here with the manga center. Okay. I think that's one thing we should have got into because, like, we're all from different parts.
You know, it's funny because the regional thing ties into Bad Ideas business model too. Is they're only selling in bigger markets. They're leaving the smaller markets. They're not even touching them.
See, I don't know how. I don't even know if it's the bigger markets because a lot of the bigger markets.
Yeah.
A lot of the bigger markets, I don't think bother. A lot of the bigger stores don't always bother with the indie stuff.
But
so I don't know. It might be medium-sized markets. I'm not sure.
Well, okay, but take a look. I don't have access to it. I could probably find it if I wanted. But take a look at the stores that are handling Bad Ideas.
Yeah,
I bet you they're going to be in larger metropolitan areas.
But just going by like Sleepy Reader,
that's the same in everywhere in the world. Comic books sell more in large cities.
They do sell more, right? But
it's not even because they have more population. It's just that the population that would be more interested in buying comics lives in the large cities.
Right, but
I'm also going by what Sleepy Reader says. He's got more comic shops in walking distance than anyone I know, and none of them are carrying bad idea. None of them have bad idea stuff. And
he lives near the mooses in Canada.
Yeah, to kind of put a bump in this very conversation, where it's leading to is actually how this show got started between me and Jared. He remembered things in the comic book shops because he's bougie up there up north. Compared to what I remembered, how comics and creators and stuff grew down here, where you had spinner racks and a comic book shop was a world away, and all that stuff, and that was a regional thing. So we had two different memories, but both happened, and that's how this whole thing started.
Right.
In those days, New York, the New York City area really was a few years ahead of. I mean, I don't think it happens anymore.
Right.
It was always like a few years ahead in just taste and culture than the rest of the country. But now with the internet and everything, I don't think that happens. But it really did used to happen. Where something would be big in New York, and then 3 years later, it would be big in Peoria.
Except for the Giants.
They moved all the way to San Francisco a bunch.
And right there, people, we're starting our insults with Canada, and we're working our way down to the south.
We got down to New York, and we'll probably be Pennsylvania next.
All right, guys, this is awesome. I'm gonna have to wrap this up. So, everybody got plans for the weekend?
I don't have any plans for the weekend.
The most humanly possible.
I'm gonna be mowing some lawn. That's about it. Maybe fix a head gasket. No, that's not coming till Wednesday. I won't be doing that.
I've retired from mowing yards. I refuse. But the head gasket thing that impressed me. That's cool. So we are going to be doing some hiking. We're going to be doing some hiking in the morning, and the wife now has a day shift job with some weekends free. So what is this? Everybody's saying bye. They're done with us.
That's because you said goodbye.
Yeah, you said we're getting ready to wrap it up.
You were the one who was ending, in case you don't remember.
Your Monsters book looks awesome, by the way. I showed mine too.
It is awesome. Well, yours didn't look as awesome,
Okay. Later, guys.
Have a good one.
Everybody be nice to each other. Stop and stop hoarding the gas.